This video this afternoon is going to cover calibrating the vibrator, the Force 3 electronics. You turn it on and it'll do some electrical tests, and then the Seismic source logo comes up, and finally your first screen. This tells us that we passed our self-test. It loaded the parameters from the CF card. We can have our ID number of this unit, our crew number, and start code is listed here. Your firmware levels, and this is the only place that you can find the firmware levels, is on this startup. So D stands for the DSP board, and this firmware is 1485. S is for the servo, and it's 1331. F is for the front plate, and it's 1246. The servo and face plate firmware is rarely changed, and it takes a special program. So if you need those upgraded, you would have to send them into the shop, or one of our field service engineers can do it out in the field. And most commonly, all firmware changes are done with the DSP firmware. And that's something that we can email to you and that you can do yourself out into the field. Now it tells us to pressure up the vibrator, so we'll pressure up the vibrator. Make sure the pad's down on the ground. And we'll get ready to press this ready button. Now, whatever is written here or over here, these buttons here, is what you press. So once we press this ready, we're going to have 5 seconds to decide whether we're just going to go in normal operate mode or into calibration. So we're going to press the calibration button. And now it's asking us if the mass is up or down. So if you can't tell, if you don't know whether your mass is down or up, you need to get out of the vibrator and check it. If it is up instead of down, you would press this no button. And it says pressure down the vibrator. And then once you get it pressured down, you'll press this ready, and it automatically flips the polarity of the torque motor. It will reboot, and then you will be able to go into calibration again. So that was all there was to it. Now we've got it reversed, so I'm going to have to tell it again. No. Tell me to pressure down the vibrator. Once I get the vibrator pressured down, I'll press ready. It'll save the settings, flipping that polarity from the torque motor, and reboot. So now I'm back to the original way, and it's asking me, is the mass down? Well, I flipped it again, and so yes, the mass is down. So I'm going to say yes. And it will enter into more checking of the valve feedback, the mass feedback, and it will check the mass LVDT and then determine whether the center is to place the mass. This calibration number at the top is how many times this unit has been calibrated. There is no way to say, oh, well, I want to see calibration 200 to go back into the memory. It's just keeping a count of how many times it's been calibrated. As you can see here in the mass position, it is raising the mass all the way to the top and all the way to the bottom, and finding where the center is. Now it's at 49%, it's almost 50%. Once it finished that test, it tests the accelerometers by pulsing the mass. Now on the simulator, it did it the first time. On a vibrator, it will pulse up to 6 times to get a good test on the accelerometers. You see the plus beside each one of these accelerometers means that they are good. They checked out correct. If they were minus, that would mean the polarity was reversed. If all of them have a minus, normally what has happened is you have told that the mass was down when it was actually up, and vice versa. If you have a question mark beside one of them, that means it's a bad. So here we are, everything's okay. So now we're just going to press operate. And the main menu has come up and we are now ready to go into production. Notice that the top line once again gives us the unit ID, the crew number, and the start code. All essential to being able to start this unit in the field by the encoder. Tells us what group it is in, the serial number of this particular Force 3, tells us what sweep we're going to run, which says right now we're going to run sweep 2. It's going to be a linear sweep. Our force, it tells us what our target is, and this 70% is high force. Gives us our GPS quality, the number of satellites, and the PPS is okay, receiving the pulses. That's critical to the Force 3 operation. The 5 signature files, it says it's okay, so we know that they'll be recorded to the CF card. And the next is Vib on, so we're also recording all 11 5QC files that is controlling this vibrator. The counter, that's for you can set it for say 4 sweeps and it'll count up and down. The reset button is to reset this counter. You can arrow these and change the numbers if you need to. If you press this reset, it takes it to 0. The right hand button is your high-low force. You can see where it's low now, and press it again and it goes to high. That concludes this video on calibrating the Force 3 to the vibrator.